We have an epidemic of obesity in this country. I think by the year 2050, they're going to say over half the Americans are obese. How do we take care of our bodies that God has given us in a way that honors our very being? What do you tell people when they say, hey, could you ask my doctor to prescribe semaglutide to lose weight? Hi, I'm Dr. Connie Mariano, and welcome to House Calls. Usually with my podcast, I begin with my honorable mentions. I love to greet people on their birthdays. Birthdays are a wonderful thing. I'm going to start off this month's celebration with my son, Jason Stevens, who had a birthday this month. Also, Melanie Nedrud had a birthday. Reiner Zim, who was my late husband John's best friend. Dr. Julie Anay Zeig, who's been on my show at least 5 times. She had a birthday. Jerry Wolf, my neighbor, turns 88. She's a young 88 this month. Kay McGann, who shares these wonderful grandchildren with me. Happy birthday. Harry Slyle, Ken Reno, Dr. Parvati Misir, one of my dear friends who's a naturopath. Happy birthday. Drew Clifford turned 40. Happy birthday, Drew. Dr. Kevin Neal, who's a anesthesiologist, pain medicine doctor here in town, who helps golf pros with their pain. Rose Zivith, who is in Calgary, is having a big birthday. Joanne Olson. Rob Raffanon, who is my late cousin's son, who was on my show about converting his whole lifestyle into something healthier and amazingly healthy. Bruce Nave, Barb Karras, Dr. Russell High, formerly a GI doctor at Mayo, who's a dear friend. Alyssa Nave in Las Vegas, Kathy Rogers, who's one of my Christmas elves, Jordan Rose, happy birthday, and Sherry Antoniak. So happy birthday, all of you. Celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary this year, my friends Harvey and Celine, on St. Paddy's Day. Even though they're not Irish, they're Jewish, but they picked that special day to be the lucky day for their anniversary. Also, the month of March, we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So for all the Americans whose ancestors hailed from Ireland, happy St. Paddy's Day. Over 10% of the U.S. population, or approximately 32.3 million people, claim Irish heritage. Isn't that amazing? Also, for many of us Christians, it is our Lenten season among those in the Catholic Church. 20% of U.S. adults describe themselves as Catholics. Generally stable numbers since 2014, and then slightly lower than in 2007, when there were 24% of the U.S. adults identified as Catholics. 5 years ago this March, do you remember where you were 5 years ago this month? And what was happening? Well, right after St. Paddy's Day, we had COVID. Can you believe it's been 5 years since COVID shut everything down? That you got the word that you need to stay in, you couldn't congregate with people, that you had to wear masks. They were forcing people to wear masks. They were shutting everything down. Schools were closed. Our whole life was isolated, had changed dramatically. I think the most significant part of our lifetime really was in March of 5 years ago when we had COVID. There were 3 major societal trends that occurred. First was the growing divide between our parties, both left and right in this country. The second was decreasing trust in many institutions. Who do you believe? You trust the government? You trust the DEA? You trust the FDA? Who do you guys trust? And the third was there's a massive splintering of the information in the environment. So what do you trust in terms of media? What information do you really trust? And I think that's the thing that made it so tough. But a lot of it was the isolation. Who do you talk to? You can't get together with people. And everybody was forced into their own little lives away from everybody. And the only contact was through screens and whatever you hear through your ears, and barely you can't touch anybody. So nearly 72% of American adults say that the pandemic did more to drive this country apart than to bring it together, which I believe is true. 3/4 of Americans say that COVID-19 pandemic took some sort of toll on their personal lives. As we know, 1 million Americans died from it. Millions of people have struggled afterwards with long COVID. And almost all of us know somebody who lost somebody or who was tragically impacted or hospitalized from COVID-19. But the hope is that most of us have moved on from 5 years ago And I look at how we move on, that we can not only survive, but can you thrive in that setting? And it looks at your resilience. What did you learn? How did you change your life? Hopefully for the better. And I think a lot of that depends on how grateful you are for what you have, that you survived that episode, the world pandemic, that you have your family and your friends to be supportive, that you have a job, you have income to keep going, and that you really have a purpose. And I think the hardest thing for us, was the isolation away from friends and family. So we look at recovering and moving on. How do we become better and healthier people as a result? And I look at a lot at body as a physician, but it isn't just body, it's mind, body, and spirit. So how can we be healthy, and how do we take care of our bodies that God has given us in a way that honors our very being? This vessel that allows us to do incredible things in this life. So this brings us to our March thing. As we go into spring, it's about rebirth, it's about rejuvenation. And it's always a good time to look at what we put into our bodies, how we feed our bodies, but not only feed it, but nourish it. Are you doing good things to your body that influence your blood sugars, your glucose, your energy levels? As we know, and the word is out that we have an epidemic of obesity in this country. I think by the year 2050, they're going to say over half the Americans are obese. If you look around you go in the shopping malls, you go to the grocery stores, you can look around and see how many people are overweight. They're overweight. And we're not body shaming people, but, it's unhealthy. We're not picking on them because they're heavy. We're just realizing as a physician, when I see somebody who's grossly overweight or obese, I don't pick on them. I just feel sorry because I see all the health implications of diabetes, hyperlipidemia, heart disease, and then cancer is associated with obesity, sleep apnea, dementia, all those things, not to mention the emotional toll of people who don't feel good about themselves when they're heavy, and they hurt, and they can't move, and they can't enjoy good health. So I thought of who would be the best person to talk to on this show in March about being good to our bodies and feeding our bodies, but also giving good nourishment to our bodies. And I thought of our special guest today, Chrissy Barth. So welcome to our show, Chrissy.
Thank you so much for having me.
We met, has it been 15 years now?
Oh my goodness, a long time ago at Mayo Clinic, I believe. Yeah.
She was working as a nutritionist at Mayo Clinic.
Right.
But she's done amazing things. I mean, she's got a very long bio, and it's going to be on the website. But Chrissy Barth is an integrative and functional sports dietitian, nutritionist. She's dedicated to educating and empowering others, which you're an amazing coach and you're an educator. You are an athlete, as we know, and you understand the vital role of nutrition in overall health and performance. So a lot of your clients are athletes, sports figures. Mm-hmm. You work a lot with that. You work with nutrition coaching and consulting in your company, Epic Biology. You work with athletes and executives. You've worked with many of my patients who are very appreciative to you. In addition to your practice, you're an assistant teaching professor in the College of Health Solutions at Arizona State University here in town. You teach nutrition and entrepreneurship, which come hand in hand in many ways. You've had the privilege of mentoring aspiring nutritionists. You're touching the future dietitians. You've also been on our local TV station, right? Didn't you have a series for a while?
I was a frequent guest on various TV shows out here, which is always a lot of fun. Yeah.
So how did you get in this business?
Yeah, gosh. So probably started when I was like 13 years old. I grew up an athlete, very active, didn't have the best eating habits and behaviors, where I kind of dabbled in dieting, and with my type A personality, took dieting to an extreme measure and wasn't fueling optimally, and was playing my sports and cramping early on. And so my parents, thank goodness, brought me to a dietitian, and was just a really incredible opportunity to really learn about how to eat and to really debunk all these crazy myths that I had growing up, that if you eat fat, you're going to get fat. Far from the truth. Fats can actually keep you lean and healthy. But I saw my first dietitian when I was 13, and I got into like just really creating menu plans for myself, which I loved, and did that for off and on for a couple years, and always knew I wanted to do nutrition in some capacity. So when I went to college, I looked at schools that offered elementary education. That was my first choice, and then nutrition or dietetics too. So I guess after the first 2 years in college, I switched my major to dietetics, and it was just like the best decision ever. Love studying, would be in class, taking tons of notes, and just live, breathe nutrition. I just loved it. Yeah.
It's science, isn't it?
It is.
The
It's science and an
biochemistry
art too. I mean, it's a science, but how you describe things and explain things and educate your patients, there's each person is so different. And so you really have to be artistic in how you explain and educate them about nutrition.
Tell me, can you share with the listeners, because you were telling a story of one of your first clients when you got into the business who
Sure.
did a dramatic turnaround in his health.
Yeah, amazing. Great guy. And so he came to see me. I forget how he knew me, or maybe somebody referred him to me. And his father passed away in his 40s of a heart attack. And my client at the time was in his 40s, had young children, was kind of going down that path of, having high cholesterol, high blood pressure, pre-diabetic. And he made a complete turnaround, 180, got into Ironman, and amazing. All of his blood work completely reversed, very healthy, driven, motivated, and amazing turnaround. Yeah. So it's great to see that.
So right now, when someone comes to you, who's your typical client nowadays?
Yeah, so I still work a lot with athletes and a lot of executives or people that just really are tired of like crazy fad dieting, and they really just wanted that holistic approach, like personalized approach to help them reach whatever their goals are, just be healthier, reverse lab values that maybe they're pre-diabetic, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and just want to maybe lose weight, but just feel better too.
Do you see a lot of people coming to lose weight?
Probably half of the people, right? Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what's your take on all the semaglutides that patients will a lot of times will say, could you just send in, a prescription for semaglutides, which are very, very expensive. But I always say, listen, look at it the big approach. I mean, it'll get you to lose weight because it's going to make you feel full faster. There are side effects. It's very expensive, but you have to do the other part of the homework in terms of what you put in your body. So what do you tell people when they say, hey, could you ask my doctor to prescribe semaglutide to lose weight?
Yeah, I would say a lot of my clients are on that medication. So it's basically all that medication, it mimics the hormone GLP-1. And I think it can be incorporated into a healthy lifestyle, providing these people are changing their habits and behaviors around food. So I've seen many success stories on being on these medications, and I've also seen horror stories. So I think what's really important is that they're changing their habits and behaviors with how they're eating, but not just how they're eating, but how are they managing stress? Are they incorporating exercise, getting good sleep? And also, if they're having a difficult time losing weight, what else is going on with these patients? So is their gut health out of balance? Are they really stressed? Do they have mold toxicity or heavy metal toxicity? So really kind of getting a better idea of what's going on if they can't lose weight. And if they're very healthy and they can't lose weight, this medication might come into play as well. But they also have to just take better care of themselves and change their eating habits.
Do you have them do food diaries? I mean, when you bring somebody in, they say, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds, but I want to live healthier. Do you ever go into their house and go through their shelves? Do you ever ask them to show you what they're eating?
That's always helpful too. When I go into some of my patients' homes, I get to kind of see what their fridge looks like, their pantry looks like. And I think nowadays in this country, we have to be just so aware of where our food comes from. A lot of what people eat are these ultra processed foods, and there are ingredients in these foods that usually are banned in other countries, but for some reason they're kept in our food supply. Hopefully that will change. Yeah. But by eating a lot of these preservatives, artificial sweeteners, dyes, it can really wreak havoc on our gut microbiome. And so if that's happening, no wonder people can't lose weight healthfully. So I think going into their homes, looking at what they're eating, it's always very helpful. Or keeping food journals too, very helpful too, to kind of see what their patterns are like during the day.
I don't know, I'm sure they've written articles about, but when diet sodas came out the first time, everybody says, oh, you can have, your McDonald's meal with your fries, but as long as I have Diet Coke, I'm okay. didn't we see a rise in the obesity in this country with all the diet sodas?
I think so, because I think what happens is with these artificial sweeteners is that our gut microbiome doesn't recognize these artificial sweeteners, and so it really wreaks havoc on our gut health, and our health begins in the gut. And also by having these artificial sweeteners, what they found out is that it actually makes us crave more sugar.
And everything tastes good.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what do you do? I have a dear friend of mine who all she drinks is Diet Coke all the time. It's Diet Coke. She doesn't even eat. And I just think it's got to, obviously reflux is an issue. Your bones can get thinner, but there's no nutritional value, is it? I mean, I enjoy Diet Coke once in a while, but it's not like instead of water, in lieu of water.
The water is so important. At least like half an ounce to 1 ounce per pound of our body weight in fluid ounces is how much we need.
Is there any particular type of water you tell people to drink? Because there's mineral water, there's smart water. I mean, there's so many bottled water.
Right.
Phil, I mean, what do you tell someone who says, hey, what kind of, okay, tell me to drink water. How many, what kind? What should I get?
Right.
Is there a certain type?
Yeah. I mean, the best water would be mineral water or spring water because you're getting the water plus all the electrolytes in it. If you're drinking RO water, which is reverse osmosis, I mean, that's great. It takes out the bad stuff, but also all the good stuff. So I drink RO water, but then I'll add electrolytes back into my water then too, because you want the electrolytes there so that the water can then be absorbed in the body. I don't recommend plastic water bottles because the plastics, we've seen a lot of toxicity from plastics. So if you can minimize plastic use and use more like Hydro Flask, glassware to put your water in.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. What do you tell about vitamins? Do you tell people about supplements? Do you advocate that, like a once a day vitamin or a gummy or something like that?
Yeah. So I got into supplements probably just after I became a dietitian. Dr. Andrew Weil, who is an MD, integrative functional medicine doctor, really interesting guy, and loved all of his books. And I just by reading his books or seeing him on TV, he would talk about supplements. And I always thought like supplements really weren't that important. But with everything it's all about personalizing somebody's supplement regimen. So I'm a big fan of testing. So checking out what their vitamin and mineral status is, and then creating supplements around that. But for most people, I do recommend a high-quality daily multivitamin mineral. That's important. We can't get everything from our food, so for insurance purposes, I do recommend that. I think vitamin D is also very critical. About half of us are deficient in vitamin D. We talk about like the RDA, the recommended dietary allowances for vitamin D, for example. They've actually increased that because so many folks are deficient, and they're looking at vitamin D as being more of like a hormone, not so much a vitamin. So every cell in our body needs it. So the RDA for vitamin D is between 600 and 800 IUs per day. But with that, I always say know what your serum or blood level is and then optimize it.
Yeah.
So we have normal ranges and then optimal ranges. So normal ranges are fine, but they're taken out of about 97 to 98% of the entire population.
Right.
And most of our population aren't the healthiest. So I always look at the optimal ranges. So when it comes to the serum level, normal is between 30 and 100. Optimal is between 60 and 80. And what they found out is during COVID, those people that either did not get COVID or they had lighter cases of COVID actually had higher or optimal ranges of vitamin D. So that's why I always say when it comes to vitamins, minerals, know what your levels are and then optimize them. That's really important.
I saw that during COVID because we were trying to make sure everybody's vitamin D was up. But then I have some patients who took too much vitamin D, and then you see the risk of kidney stone.
Absolutely.
So I said, stay hydrated. We minimize that. We track it.
Right.
So when you see someone first time, do you order the lipid panel, your electrolytes, metabolic panel? You order a whole panel of things?
I always encourage that they work with their doctor too.
Yeah,
So, definitely get like an annual visit with your doctor, bring those lab results in. If they want maybe like functional lab tests, if their doctors can order that. If not, I can order it. Some of my more common functional lab tests that I'll order are different like stool studies if they're having gut issues. I'm a big fan of micronutrient tests so that it checks their vitamins and minerals, omega-3, omega-6 ratio, amino acid profiles too. That's also very important to see. Are they eating well? Are their bodies absorbing what they're eating? That's really important too.
Share a little bit about the gut biome. Millions of different type of good bacteria in the gut, and the relationship with obesity in that. Can you share some of the studies about that?
Sure. Yes. I mean, our health begins in the gut. I mean, our immune system starts in the gut too. And there's a big relationship between gut health and brain health. So one area that I really am very passionate about is working in Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
My grandmother had Alzheimer's in her mid to late 80s, died in her late 90s of it. And very fortunate to be trained under a gentleman, Dr. Dale Bredesen, who is a really great Alzheimer's medical doctor and researcher too. And so there is a really interesting protocol where you can actually reverse the early onset Alzheimer's, like mild cognitive decline. And also for those that might be predisposed to Alzheimer's, you can help them either prevent the onset of Alzheimer's as well. And there's about 20 plus possible causes of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And one of it is having an unhealthy gut. So we have good bacteria and bad bacteria in our gut. And so we want more of that good gut bacteria. So what helps build that good gut bacteria is choosing a lot of fiber foods, like plant foods. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, beans, all those are really nourishing for our gut. The fiber is what fuels our good gut bacteria. What also really important thing is to get in at least 30 different plant species every single week.
Wow.
So I tell my patients or clients, keep a little food journal, write down all the different plants that you're eating in a given week, and many might be at 10 or 15, and then trying to build on that. That's really important, because the healthier your gut is, the healthier your body and brain are as well.
That's amazing. We're going to take a quick break. Sure. We'll come back a little bit more to the gut, but I also want to talk about your athletes. For anybody who's going to get a training and a regimen, what do you tell them to eat? And then the final thing really is about longevity, because everything is how do I live long? We talk about Mediterranean diet, or what are things that you tell people who want to live in their 90s with good brain and no pain? I like to talk about that. So stay tuned for more on House Calls with Dr. Connie and Chrissy Barth. Welcome back to House Calls with Dr. Connie and nutritionist, dietitian, Chrissy Barth. And one of the things we touched upon in the first half of this show was, let's go back to the basics of water. Why is water so important?
Well, our bodies are mostly water. About 60-70% of our bodies are water. And so if you're dehydrated, you're going to be shrinking your brain cells, not very healthy. And oftentimes when people think that they're hungry, they're actually dehydrated.
Yeah.
So I always say bring a water bottle with you wherever you go, drinking throughout the day. One way to see if you are properly hydrated, whenever you go to the bathroom, your urine should look more like lemonade. If it looks like apple juice, you're very dehydrated. So making sure you drink plenty of water, really important.
Tell about the different types. You talked about mineral water and all the different types, but there are people who are very, very foo-foo about what kind of water they drink. But definitely plastic is not a good idea, right?
Right.
Don't do the plastic.
Right.
The other thing I love is really coffee, because I need my coffee every day. Is coffee healthy?
Yeah, so coffee probably is one of my favorite foods. Coffee's great. If you have healthy blood pressure, healthy heart, caffeine in moderation is fine. In coffee, there's a really powerful antioxidant called chlorogenic acid. And so chlorogenic acid helps with fighting inflammation, lowers the risk of diabetes, and even Alzheimer's disease. And we actually get more of this acid in decaf coffee and lighter roasts.
Really?
So, but with caffeine, just know that too much of it has negative side effects as well. So anything over 500 milligrams a day, not good for us. But I usually encourage folks to stay at no more than about 300 milligrams a day.
So how much is that? How many cups?
Yeah, about 2 to 3 cups of coffee.
Okay, that's. No, some of us will do like espresso, but we'll dilute it out with a latte. There's a little bit of that, but as long as you...
Yeah, I think one shot of espresso is about 75 milligrams.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You're not going to overdose per se on that.
Nope.
Special things with coffee and what we do with our beverages. Smoothies, any particular type of smoothie you'd recommend? Or...
I think smoothies are great. Fruits and vegetables are so important to get in our diets. About the average person probably gets in maybe 1 or 2 servings a day, usually French fries or ketchup, which really doesn't count as a fruit or vegetable. But I always say strive to get in about 2 to 4 servings of fruit, 3 to 5 servings of vegetables. Some health experts say 9 to 13 vegetables a day, which is a
Wow.
lot of vegetables. So
How do you fit that in?
I don't know. I've got to be pretty creative.
So one of the things, the guys in the studio talk about, for parents who are listening, invariably one of your kiddos is going to be the picky eater that will only eat chicken nuggets, right, and fries. What do you tell parents who are like, I've got this kiddo and he's going to want to eat chicken nuggets the rest of his life.
Yeah, and hopefully they will grow out of it. But I would just say try to find things that that maybe kids will like to maybe dip fruits and vegetables in. So like when it comes to fruit, maybe dipping that in yogurt, vegetables, ranch, guacamole, hummus, bean dips, all of that's really good too. Making smoothies for kids. I mean, I like adding spinach to my smoothie. You can't even taste the spinach. So I'll do a protein powder, usually a frozen fruit like frozen berries, a handful of spinach, some kind of milk, and then maybe peanut butter or almond butter. And it's just a great way to get in other types of fruits and vegetables, or adding or sneaking in vegetables into different baked goods or dinners too, like lasagna, kind of throwing in additional vegetables that way too.
Somebody asked me the other day, we were having breakfast at one of the local places in the acai bowl. Can you talk about superfoods? Like an acai when they have a bowl of fruit?
Sure, yeah. I mean, superfoods, I think really, all foods can be super, but when it comes to superfoods, a lot of you are like plant forward, so lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds. The acai bowl, acai is a really great tropical fruit. It's a superfood. So I think I had one colleague of mine, and she really hates that question about what are superfoods, because she thinks all foods are super. So I think there are foods that are more nutrient rich than others, and so usually it's that Mediterranean diet. All those types of foods in that particular diet are superfoods.
So if somebody wants to train, they're getting ready to train, what kind of diet or food plan do you recommend for them?
Yeah, I think really it's about personalizing that plan for the person. But when we're talking about athletes, I think, carbohydrates are very critical, because if we don't get enough carbohydrates in our diet, our brains can't function very efficiently and our bodies kind of hit the wall. So being an athlete training for an event, carbohydrates are very critical. I usually say don't go less than 40 to 50% of your calories from carbohydrate.
So the night before the race, they always say they're going to load up on carbs. They go out for spaghetti, just a big carb diet. Do you recommend that too?
I think nowadays it's really about tailoring your or tapering your training up to the event. So you still want to eat a good carbohydrate-rich diet, but proteins are important too, fats are important, good balanced diet. And then really it's about tapering your training so that your body can naturally carbohydrate load for that event.
That's amazing with that. I've got older patients who want to make it to their 90s. And I said, well, the goal also is to make sure your brain still works really well. But the more slender you are, the better, because my obese people don't live very long. The diet you mentioned, is it more Mediterranean based, or do you have people who try to become more vegan? Or is there one particular diet you're seeing more longevity related to it?
Yeah, so I think with the whole longevity piece, I think there's a new diet or lifestyle called the Mind Diet. And the Mind Diet is a combination of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. So the DASH diet is an acronym that's known, it's Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So when they combine these two diets together, they're really good for our physical health, our heart health, and brain health. And so a lot of these foods on this particular diet or lifestyle, lots of plants. So fruits and vegetables, good sources of fiber, nuts and seeds, good sources of unsaturated fat that helps fight inflammation, good quality sources of protein. So pasture-raised eggs, pasture-raised chickens, beef in moderation, but if you do like beef, I always say go for grass-fed, grass-finished beef. It's going to be higher in omega-3s that fights inflammation and lower in omega-6s. Too many omega-6s in our diets tend to increase inflammation because that omega-3, omega-6 ratio is completely out of control. The optimal ratio of 3 to 6 is a 1 to 4. In today's world, in our country, it's about 1 to 30, so lots of inflammation. So with the omega-6s, you want to be very careful of the ultra-processed food. A lot of our seed oils tend to raise our omega-6 ratio to 3. So, but the Mind Diet also, so good good sources of animal proteins, fats, a lot of unsaturated fats. So like olive oil, really great, avocado oil, avocados, nuts and seeds. Spices are also really helpful. Like turmeric is a super spice, really helpful for fighting inflammation and helping with our brain health too. And then fermented foods. So fermented foods like, yogurt, fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, kimchi, certain pickles, soy products like miso and tempeh, which is a fermented soybean. All those fermented foods help fuel the gut microbiome.
With people working and being busy, is there an easy way to get all this nutrition? I mean, you can take supplements. A lot of people don't have time to plan. Where I live, we eat out a lot.
Sure.
Are there certain restaurants you'd recommend people go to that are healthier than most?
Gosh, well, in the Scottsdale area, one of my favorites is True Food. That's a really great place. All the Fox restaurants, they're all great, nutrient-rich foods. But I always say whenever you go out to eat, getting in that protein, but be careful with the size of the protein.
Portions,
Yeah.
yeah.
So for like if you go out to eat, steaks are usually like 16, 20 ounces, where men about 4 to 6 ounces is a good amount of protein. Women about 3 to 4 ounces. Then trying to get in some kind of vegetable with that. So whether a side salad or add a vegetable to the side, some kind of good whole grain. Just really building a balanced plate is really important because that balanced plate will help with metabolism, helps with sleep, energy, stress. So looking at food as medicine too, which is really important.
So when somebody gets their baked potato, do you go, which one's healthier, sour cream, margarine, or butter? What do you tell people?
Well, margarine is probably like one molecule away from being plastic, which is the worst thing. That's what I grew up on, but
butter.
Yeah, so sticking to all the real stuff. So like butter, and then olive oil is like the best type of fat. Yeah.
Use that. There's a lot of times you'll go out to a nice place and they'll instantly put the bread basket in front of you, and it's loaded with salt. And I know my friends when they come back from Europe, they'll say, "Well, I ate bread in Italy, and I was fine, never gained weight. I come here and I'll have like 2 of the pretzel rolls at one place, and you gain like 3 pounds overnight." Is that all salt that we're seeing?
Gosh, it's a good question. I think in our country here, I mean, there's a lot of like gut issues, especially with like wheat products or gluten. And it might be because wheat is a crop that is so heavily pesticided with like herbicides too. And so I think because our bodies can't digest that, and so I think it really affects inflammation and our gut health. Because I know when I go to different countries and I eat bread, I feel better when I eat bread there.
Bloated.
Yeah, but here, I mean, it might be that it's all the pesticides that are put on our crops here. So if you can, try to buy organic, but when you go out to eat, you really can't. So I just say try to balance out that plate. If you're having bread to start the meal off with, then maybe for your dinner, go for protein and vegetables.
I tell patients a lot, it's the portion size.
Absolutely.
Because they have these huge platters. It's almost like you can eat a third of it.
Right.
And bring everything home or share it with a bunch of people.
Well, plate sizes have gotten larger too.
Oh, gosh.
And it's a very psychological thing because if you have the same portion off of a smaller plate as you would off of a larger plate, you're going to be a lot more satisfied off of that smaller plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and eat slowly.
Right.
Drink water, eat slowly.
Talk.
Talk.
Yes.
I know, people just rush through.
Right.
So what do you recommend for example, protein bars? Like somebody is in because I tend to get hungry, angry.
Me too.
All of a sudden you get shaky. It's like, I need to eat something now.
Right.
I need What do you recommend people who do that so that they don't all of a sudden get their sugars dropping and they're all shaky and cranky?
So I always recommend that people plan and prepare ahead. So bringing like easy, non-perishable snacks with you. Like trail mix, mixed nuts are really great, crunchy, satiating. I like beef jerky. That's really great too. Fruit is great to pack as well. Protein bars. I mean,
What kind of fruit do you like?
Fruit, oh gosh, bananas, apples, oranges, whatever's easy to grab and go.
Okay, grapes?
And then bars too. Yeah,
Okay.
grapes are good too.
Are any particular bars better than others?
Goodness, there's so many bars out there. One of my favorite bars recently is called IQ bars. And so the IQ bars are really good for brain health.
Wow.
There's also no sugar that's added to that either.
Does it taste good?
It does. I love it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Sprouts carries it. Those are good. Layered bars are also really good quality protein bars too. Kind bars are great as well. All whole food ingredients in those too.
So can you describe, like if you're sitting here, what's the perfect diet, meal plan for a day for somebody who wants to impress you and say, hey, look, I eat healthy. What would make you smile as a nutritionist?
Sure. I think always having something within the first 2 hours of getting up in the morning. And when I think of meals, I think of at least like 3 to 5 food groups, protein being one of those. Usually I say getting in a fiber-rich food, protein and fat. That's a very good balanced plate. So for somebody having a good breakfast, and maybe that's like some eggs, whole grain toast, some berries, and avocado maybe.
Okay.
Lunch could be, oh goodness, like an entree salad with protein on it, or could be like a nice like sandwich with some turkey, cheese, side salad, maybe just getting in some kind of vegetable whenever they're eating too. And then dinner, a good balanced plate. So getting in some kind of protein like wild salmon, some quinoa, which is a great complex carbohydrate, higher in protein, and then a vegetable. And then cooking your vegetables in like avocado oil or olive oil or grass-fed butter would be really good. And then usually if your meals are more than 5 hours apart, to keep blood sugars more optimal, I always say getting in a good balanced snack too. So fiber and protein. So that could be like an apple and peanut butter or a handful of nuts. That would be a good snack too. And then if you love sweets, like a nice like piece of dark chocolate after dinner. Yeah.
It's all portion size and trying to balance it out.
Right.
I think the hardest thing is for people who travel. You're on the go on airplanes. It's not going to be the most nutritious type of food, but just go more with protein and hydration.
Right.
It's usually what you do.
Yeah, protein, vegetables, hydration. Yeah, if you're stopping at a restaurant at the airport, protein, vegetables, and staying well hydrated with water.
So what is the hardest thing about what you do?
Goodness, I love all what I do. I would say the hardest thing is if I'm working with somebody and they're just not motivated into making that change. I mean, I'm definitely there to help support them, but you really have to want to make that change too. And so for many people, they are focused, but the hardest thing I think is maintaining that too. And so I always say just, following up is so important. So when my clients or patients check in with me, I think that's always great. If they don't, then it's usually a little bit more challenging then, because I want them to do better, to be healthy, and following up is so important.
Yeah,
in that
you're more
process.
or less you're the food coach.
Right. Yeah.
So among the people you see, how many you think are emotional eaters? Like they call it hungry, angry, lonely,
Sure.
tired. They need to just
A lot of people.
fill it up.
Yeah, a lot of people. If they're bored, stressed, anxious, Some people tend to turn to food or turn away from food. And so it's really just helping them have a healthier relationship with food and also doing things that make them feel good. So exercising is a great way to boost endorphins. So hiking, spending time on outside, like walking, hiking, really good for the mind, the body. Yeah.
But it's a challenge, but you've got a plan. Like if you're cooking for a family, you're going to have a nutritious meal. We're going to work on that. I try to do that with my patients because most of the time they eat out of the club, and I said just go with protein, lean meat, vegetables. Do as much of that as possible, because then sometimes you peel the vanity. Look, you lost weight. You look great. The ones who use the semaglutide, I said if you want to lose 30 or 40 pounds. You have to increase your protein intake.
Right, absolutely.
Because they're telling them to do that, and then definitely stay hydrated.
Right.
What is it about what you do that you really love?
Gosh, I love meeting different people, helping them, learning about their story, and then trying if they're stuck. I like to kind of brainstorm with them to help them overcome whatever their challenges are to be healthier.
I would say like when I was growing up, in the 70s, they always had home economics and they had a nutrition course. Do schools teach nutrition in high school anymore?
I don't think so. And I think every school needs a dietitian in their school to help educate kids. Because I know when I was growing up, we did have home economics, but that was about like baking and cooking, not really learning about the science of food. And so I think, gosh, it'd be wonderful to see elementary schools, junior high schools have nutrition in their curriculum.
Because they forget, they think it's like, it's too difficult to count calories. They still have a food pyramid, right?
Right. Oh,
they
yeah.
still do that. Do they still modify the food pyramid, or what does that look
Yeah,
like
now it's My Plate. I think
My Plate?
I think it's better than what it was. But it would be great to educate kids because now we're seeing a lot of mental health challenges going on too, and there's a big relationship between how you fuel your body and how it affects brain health.
So for kids with ADDHD, and we're seeing a lot of that. Is there a particular things that you tell them, don't give your kid that?
I would say a lot of your artificial like sweeteners, dyes too, because that can make it worse. And really just sticking to whole foods, the fruits, the vegetables, good sources of protein too. Yeah.
I've got patients with cancer, and one of the things I ask the oncologist, what do you tell your cancer patients? Pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, how do you prevent cancer from increasing or growing? And we're finding inflammation, but have you heard the theory about sugar?
Right.
They tell you no sweets, don't eat sugar.
Right. Cancer loves sugar. And so there's a really interesting lifestyle diet too. It's called the Keto Flex diet. And Dr. Dale Bredesen incorporates this for his patients that are on the Alzheimer's disease protocol. Really great nutrient-rich diet. I mean, it's going to be high fat, which is good for cancer patients. Very low carbohydrate, about 10% carbohydrates. Most of your carbs come from vegetables on this diet, and then moderate protein. And so I think for that, for cancer patients, to really cut back on the refined sugars and sugars in general, and really pushing the unsaturated fats that fight inflammation, good sources of protein, and lots of vegetables, that's a really great diet too for cancer patients too.
The thing I struggle with, the other side of it, number one killer in this country is still coronary disease, heart disease, stroke. It's my guys who won't give up their steaks, who eat steak 3 or 4 times a week.
Right.
For somebody, for let's say an adult male, probably around 50, who doesn't smoke, high cholesterol, what do you usually tell them? And they're not going to give up their steak. How often would you limit your red meat?
I think the biggest thing with that too is portion size. So if they can get their portions down to 4 to 6 ounces and going for a better quality steak, like
filet?
like grass-fed, grass-finished is great. Higher omega-3 content versus the conventional beef. Yeah.
And then for barbecue, wasn't there a theory before how barbecue is not healthy for our gut?
Right, because of when the beef, for example, it gets all like charcoaly, that can cause cancer as well, or increase the risk of
Colon
cancer.
cancer.
Right.
Yeah. So do you have any older patients who see you? The oldest patients who go to you? Do you find you get a lot of them coming in?
I just had one actually. I actually work with his late wife. She had Alzheimer's disease, and he comes to the Valley every once a year, and he'll always check in with me. And he's in his 70s, and he wants to just be healthy and think more clearly. And so it's great that people do that. I had one patient years ago, really sweet man. He was in his late 70s, and he would come out here every winter, and we would always meet. Really sweet man. And he was really concerned about his health because his father died of heart disease, and he didn't want to get that. And he came out for, I think I saw him 10 times in 10 years. And
good, he's consistent, follows up. We only got a few minutes left. Any parting advice to people listening in? Everybody's got to eat.
Absolutely.
So what do you want to advise everybody listening?
Gosh, I think really just enjoying food. Food should taste good. If it doesn't, it's just not very fun. So I think, and then also know that taste buds can change and cravings can change too. And so really trying to incorporate more nutrient-rich whole foods into your diet. You'll feel better. You'll want to continue eating that way as well. And also just thinking about quality of life, not so much quantity, but quality of life too. That's really important. And the big picture too. So eating well, exercising, moving, getting good sleep, managing stress, staying well hydrated, having good gut health. It's all the whole big picture.
That's great. Yeah. Just words of wisdom from the experts. So thanks again, and be good to your body, be good to you, put good things and nourish your body, and have a great rest of the month. We'll talk to you next month on House Calls with Dr. Connie, and thanks to my guest, Chrissy Barth.
Yeah, thank you.